Welcome to The Point of View, and this is your favorite current affairs show on television. It's on City TV. My name is Bernard Avle. It's an interactive show which has a lot of interesting dimensions to it. And tonight we're discussing the most controversial issue that has taken place in Ghana, but it's interactive, so get in touch with us on a number of ways. You can send us a comment on social media with the hashtag Point of View. If you're watching on television, we have a WhatsApp number on the screen. And of course, on Facebook, we are on City TV GH. There's a lot of commentary going on this story. I have a very interesting panel, two in studio. One we've interviewed already. We're going to have a conversation about the very controversial CSE. And I'll tell you what CSE is, and I'll tell you who my panel is when we return. Stay with us. So what is comprehensive sexuality education? Is it evidence-based, human rights, gender-sensitive, and culturally appropriate education for our kids? Or is it abortion rights, sexual pleasure education, masquerading as human rights? It's a really interesting conversation. I have the Executive Director of the National Population Council, Dr. Adelaide Appiah, Leticia Adelaide Appiah. She's on the panel. Doc, great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Good.
Leonard.
I also have the UNFPA resident rep. He is Niyi Ojuolape. Great to have you, Niyi.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
We'll also be joined by Angel Kabonu. He is the president of NAGRAT. We actually spoke to him moments before coming on the air. He has some interesting views to share. In fact, maybe let me start with Angel, because whatever the curriculum is, it will be delivered by teachers. And Angel Kabonu is the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers. Here are his views on the controversial CSE.
Well, the document seeks to give sexuality education to our children from age 6. And it is more intense than what pertains or what it used to be. The interesting thing that it has raised furore from parents, from reverend ministers, and from teachers. And once it has raised some concerns, I expect that the managers of education will take a pause and address these concerns of the people, because after all, what is education? Education is a transmission of worthwhile values. And if the people don't see the way we are going as values of our society, then why do we want to foster that or force the situation? So I expect that the Ghana Education Service, the Ministry of Education, the National Curriculum Authority, and all stakeholders, if there are cries based on the understanding or the misunderstanding of people, they will have to pause. As a matter of fact, they will have to pause and see whether we can all take a stance and address the concerns that have been raised by whoever.
I was reading through the document. The Education Ministry, or in fact, for that matter, the Ghana Education Service said that there was a broad stakeholder engagement before this document or this draft document was put out.
Well, this issue of broad stakeholder engagement, it has become a cliche, and almost always broad stakeholder engagement. I do know and understand the international agenda of organizations and the strategies and modus operandi that they employ in getting certain concepts through, especially in developing and third world countries. And I do know that whenever you see that education is changing or there is a need for any recalibration of education, you get a lot of offers from all over the world, organizations and people interested in funding and supporting you. But they also don't fund and support you because they love you. They fund and support you because they want to also integrate into your system certain concepts that are common in their metropolitan countries. So some of us, we understand some of these workings. But the fact of the matter is that education is for the people. if the people have a problem with any aspect of education delivery, the only choice you have is to pause and do an engagement with the people. That is how I see this whole thing.
I have gone through portions of the document where, for example, Module 3 under ages 15 and 19 talk about fertility, pregnancy-related issues, and then childbirth. Fertility regulation, protecting oneself, and then self-abstinence and all that. I believe these are components that need to be taught at the second cycle school, because children or students at this level are adolescents, and they must know some of these things to be able to manage themselves properly in terms of educating themselves.
Yes. When you go down that document, you also see that under it we have the human rights of the child. Then you also see another thing that is talking about gender. Now, in Europe, for example, gender is no longer defined as male and female. In Europe, gender is defined as male, female, and transgender. Okay? So when you say gender, are you limiting the gender to the Ghanaian concept of gender?
I believe stakeholders took into consideration our culture.
Yes. That is why what you have is the general framework. Whether you have the detailed write-up, I don't have it, you also don't have it yet. So that is where we can break those things down. They also talk about human rights, sexual rights. So for example, if, like in Europe once again, and I like giving an example where it is now accepted for a boy to say that he was created a girl, but he was trapped in the body of a boy. And once the person says this, you will have to accept the person and understand that the gender he decided to choose. So gender is no longer by birth, but it is by choice. Are you getting it? Look, my brother, the issue is this. Whether the parents, the reverend ministers, the teachers are wrong or not, there is a need for the managers of education to do whatever it takes to give a certainty, to give make the people surety, and also concrete evidence that we don't want to go the way the others have.
So this is the first part of the conversation with Angel Kabanu. He says, if parents, pastors, imams are not happy, we should pause. Let's start with Dr. Leticia Appiah. The graphic interviewed you, and the story was sex education starts in primary 1, and you were the person they interviewed. So what role does the National Population Council play in this? Because you are not an educationist necessarily. So what role did you play? Are you the one who designed the curriculum, or were you the consultant? What role did you play?
No, thank you so much. I'm not a consultant. I'm the one who designed the curriculum. But we work as a team. And you know, the National Population Council, it's supposed to advise government on effective population management.
Okay.
And our main role is looking at fertility, mortality, and migration. You know, and so comparing sexuality education, that talks about quality human resource really falls also under the purview of the National Population Council. So we, together with our stakeholders, realized that yes, life skills, sexuality education was being taught actually in Ghana, but in very fragmented ways. And so we thought it wise to get a consultant to bring it all together so that it will be structured. So the information, it will be layered on. It will move from one stage to the other, so that when the child gets out of school, he is well equipped to deal with issues in terms of sexuality. And
when did it become sexuality? Because when I was in school, I was taught sex education, which is male, female, anatomy, biology. But sexuality is broader than sex.
Yes.
When did the concept change?
Well, I think we did broad consultations and with all our stakeholders, and the consultant is really versed in adolescents, and so we settled on the comprehensive sexuality education. And it's comprehensive because it's not about sex education, it's about value clarification, it's about our norms as a country, it's about what we cherish, it's about the goals that we're setting for ourselves as individuals, and also as communities and as a nation. And so it is comprehensive. It's not just sex education. Starts from the values, and then it's built on as you grow. You know your body, you know what to expect during menstruation for girls, and then what to expect for boys if your voice is breaking. And then it moves on, and when you start getting your hormones, which are natural, that you will get, we teach you, or they're supposed to teach you, that these are normal things that are happening in your body, and this is what you do to take care of yourself.
So when you say a consultant, was it a Ghana consultant that decided that we should focus on sexuality education? It's a global movement. Because I've seen the expression or the terminology CSE, not just in Ghana. Yeah. So was this a global decision that teaching students about sex was not comprehensive enough, so we need to broaden into sexuality?
Well, comprehensive sexuality education, yes, it is a global thing, but then it is country-owned. You can talk about a school of journalism, a curriculum for journalism, but what pertains in Ghana will be different from what pertains in Nigeria and what pertains in Sierra Leone. But then it is school of journalism curriculum. So that is how it is. So it's comprehensive sexuality education, but it is culturally appropriate. And then gender, not age appropriate and culturally sensitive. Because
so the concept is global.
Yes.
And then you tweak it to suit your local norms. Is that what it is?
Yeah, let me thank you once more for having us. Now, to talk about the difference between sex and sexuality, I think that's what you want to know. Let us make it very clear.
Okay.
Sex is an issue of mating. That is between a man and a woman getting together, performing the act of sex.
But that's a verb.
Yes. Now, sexuality goes into what Dr. Appiah just mentioned, to the fact that a girl, for example, needs to know that there will be a time that she will start menstruating. Those are within the continuum of her sexuality. For a boy to know that there will be a time that he starts to have certain feelings, he starts to have pubic hair and all of that. So those are issues in the continuum of sexuality. So that's the difference. It doesn't mean that...
No, but if you define sex as just the act,
yeah.
If you say sex, it could be male or female as well.
No, that's gender.
So
that's gender. Before now, these are, of course, a language also, the English language is also evolving and having specifics in terms
when you
of...
are filling your passport form and they say sex.
They say sex, yes.
Do they say, you write last week or last year, you write male or female, right?
Over time now, we begin to talk about gender.
So you're saying that the word sex should be limited to the act.
Yes.
And the issue of male or female should be a better characterization is gender.
No, what I mean is that sex conflicts several things together.
Which is the point I'm making.
So the idea is to divide it. When you talk about sex, which is the real issue that people have in terms of sex education, if you say somebody should be talking about sex education, you are not going to go too far beyond just talking about the issue of mating between a man and a woman, for example.
So sexuality is
broader. But when you
broader.
talk about sexuality, sexuality is broader. And when we talk about this particular concept, talking about comprehensive sexuality education, let me first try to bring into clear focus what the objective is of comprehensive sexuality education. When you give, and they put comprehensive there because it's a total life cycle thing that a girl or a boy or a man is going to be taught. And the end point is this. For example, for the girl to understand that when that uncle comes near and starts to touch you in certain places, you know that he's up to something. That girl should be aware of her sexuality. We all know it's in our society these days that children are being raped by their uncles, by people right in the same house. Even persons with disabilities, they also conduct this act of rape. And if a child comes up and says, I've been feeling in this particular, I'm feeling in this particular way, the parents usually, they will shut her up. But then, over time, when we give comprehensive sexuality education to this child, it is to enable her know that there are certain things that are not permissible. This uncle should not touch you in this way. When you see a stranger, when they are behaving in this particular, even for those who are matured, you should be able to know. The complex sexuality education enables even the matured person to know that the way this guy is coming at me, he wants to do something, and this is what I have to say. I say no and make it no. That is
okay.
So it is the total sexuality education that prevents rape, that prevents teenage pregnancy, that prevents gender-based violence, that prevents even spousal violence. These are things that are in our society which we have not been talking about, but which we are experiencing, which are, so to say, normal. But going forward, it's not going to be normal when you have education for women.
So when you read
girls.
the forward of the document you have, the book you have, it says, this is signed by the DG of Ghana Education Service, says,
Okay.
this is a guide on comprehensive sexuality and reproductive health education in Ghana. It is divided into two main sets of guidelines with modules. The first set of guidelines are meant for in-school comprehensive sexuality and reproductive health education. It's organized according to grade and age modules, spanning from age 4 to 18 years. They are to be used by teachers from the kindergarten level to senior high school level. That's been one issue people have asked about, that what's the best age to discuss or to introduce the concept of sexuality?
Thank you very much. Now, let me just quickly respond to this very, very clearly so that our viewers at home can also understand what the real issues are. The curriculum, what is being taught, has been there since whenever.
70s.
When you were in school, you were taught biology. You were taught sciences. You were also taught social studies. The basics of what is being taught, they have always been there. But over time, there are different iterations based on which it is deepened, and then we provide more education and information about these issues. But we came up with these guidelines. Ghana government, as well as stakeholders, came up with these guidelines to say, you shouldn't teach everything, even for children. You should stratify it. For those between age 4 and 5 and 6, please limit your teaching to ABC. For those between age 7 going forward, this is what you do. So that is what government has done, for which government should be commended. This particular guideline, which is called the Adolescent Sexual Reproductive Health and Development Source Book for Teachers, has been with us before now. These guidelines is to help them, is to tell teachers to say, you don't teach everything to all the students irrespective of their ages. For age 4 to 5, limit your teaching to this.
Exactly.
For age 7 to 9, limit your teaching to this. That is what is there. It's just a 26-page document.
Yes, it's fresh. It's brilliant. I just wanted to clarify whether the things prescribed for the various ages are what society thinks is appropriate. So I'm just going to run through briefly some of the things. For example, and I asked you this in the morning, you have preschool, module 1, what we believe in, how we interact. Module 2, personal hygiene, oral hygiene. No problem there, right? Primary school, 6 to 12 years. Primary 1, presumed age is 6 years. Values and society, social norms, what we believe in. So it's a continuation. No problem there. Personal hygiene, oral and hygiene, no problem there. Module 3, session 1, myself, being a male or female. I think this is fine for 6-year-olds, right? Primary 2, 7-year-olds, reflecting on our own attitudes. Personal hygiene, body hygiene, and then roles and responsibilities as a child. Pretty cool. A few people have in primary 3. Module 1, session 2, recognizing whether something is fair or unfair. No problem there. Understanding interpersonal relationships, types and forms. No problem there. Module 4, session 2, families and relationships in our lives. Module 5, session 3, concept of gender, maleness and femaleness. Some people feel that 8-year-olds, this is a bit heavy.
Which one?
No.
What I just read, the concept of gender for 8-year-olds. What's your comment on that?
The gender, the male and maleness and femaleness.
Yes.
No, because at that time, like I said in the morning, look at the 9 years. You're talking about human growth and developmental life cycles. So you're going to talk about the girl preparing her for puberty. So it is important that you know that as a female, this is what makes you a female. You're going to be having your breast buds developed. You're going to have your hips come out a bit, and then you're going to be menstruating. And then the boys are going to have these signs, you know. So it is important that they know it's not just the physical differences, but then what goes on physiologically, so that if it's happening, they know the boys are not going to be mocking the girls, you know, so that, I mean, you stay in yourself and they're not going to be mocking
the concern people have expressed is that because in certain countries, gender definitions are quite fluid. Some people say, for example, that there are 4 different types of genders. In fact, I saw a funny documentary that says in California, they are promoting 15. So they feel this is a subtle way of introducing, or this could be a subtle way of introducing these fluid gender identities and self-identifications to 8-year-olds. Do you get my point?
Yes, I get it.
So what's your comment on teaching gender roles to 8-year-olds and being mindful that different global views and different parts of the world have different levels of acceptability of whether you are male, female, transgen, or whatever they call it.
That is why it's culturally acceptable.
No, I'm asking, so this is the question. You are laughing.
Let me address that issue. It's very, very simple. You're talking about what is happening elsewhere.
Outside.
Yes. And
like
all is under CSE.
Yes.
Different types of CSEs.
Let's first agree that the gentleman called Angel, who said that we are teaching children of 6 years, 7 years, things about sex, is wrong.
Oh, did he say that?
Yes, it's wrong because he talked about from age 6. Because the way you picked it now, you picked it from what we have for 8 years.
Yes.
So first, that is wrong. Now, the issue on the table, which talks about the concept, this particular concept coming from abroad. This document was brought up by the government of Ghana using Ghanaians in Ghana for the people of Ghana. It is a misnomer. It is actually what I would call an arrogance of opinion to think that you would know what is better to do than the practitioners who are also they grew up in this culture. The teachers who are going to teach it, those in the Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Health and National Population Council and everybody, those who came up together to put together this document, they're also Ghanaians. They also have the same cultural background and religious background as we all have. For anybody to think, oh, I will know much more than they do, or that they will lead us.
You are not answering the
question. No, that they will lead us.
Forget about
Let me explain.
I'm just asking you a question.
Let me explain.
People say that 8-year-olds are very young to be introduced to the concept of gender, which is a heavy subject. Yeah. And they are saying that on the basis of the fact that the CSE curriculum, admittedly within different modules in different countries, have different gender definitions. What is the guarantee that it will not come here? Whether somebody is asking the question, I think to say people are arrogant for asking questions is not necessary.
I was going to land.
Asking you a question. What's
I was going to land. I was going to prepare to provide that as a bit of background and then land. And let me land now. What I'm saying is this: those who prepared this, they prepared it so that it can be taught in Ghana, and their teachers, the teachers who are going to be using it are Ghanaians. There is I don't think there is any possibility of a teacher teaching the students what is not culturally appropriate, because there is the culturally appropriate phrase that is in this, that you say we want to teach our children what they should learn.
But you see, the problem in what you're saying is that if Ghanaians had decided that they were going to do CSE on their own, then I would not have a problem with what you're saying. We've all admitted that CSE is a global thing, which we are now trying to apply locally. Do you get my point? Well, so we didn't get up one day and say, as Ghanaians, we are going to do CSE.
We've actually
CSE is a global module. It wasn't created in Ghana. Unless you're telling me that CSE was invented by Ghanaians.
No, the issue is that we've been implementing CSE. We've just not named it as CSE.
Yes.
We've been implementing it, but not just named it.
Really?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. If you look at what we've been doing since the 70s, all fits into CSE. We've just not named it as CSE.
So why did you decide to name it CSE now?
Well, we're putting it all together.
For what purpose? If we've been implementing it since the 70s, why are we calling it CSE And why is it generating all the furor generating globally? If it's the same thing, then why are you giving yourself trouble by even calling it CSE? If you know that CSE is the same thing you're implementing, and that there's no difference, and it's causing all this confusion and all these videos people are showing up, why are you going to call it CSE to give yourself all this trouble? Why don't you just continue what you are teaching and keep it the same so you don't have all these problems?
As a matter of fact, I was on the radio program in the morning. Reverend Opuni was saying that it appears as if the name is a problem.
Exactly.
That maybe we should drop that name and continue what we're doing.
Exactly.
These guidelines, it actually says there are two ways of rolling it out. The one, mainstreaming it into what we are already teaching. That is in civics, social science, social studies, and what have you, that these are things that are already there. Or for those who think it is most appropriate that they should have it as a standalone. But then, if you're a teacher, what I say is this, is that a teacher that will be teaching people, that will be teaching children in Accra, the manner of delivery, the language and the structuring of the syllabus and what have you will be different from a teacher, for example, in Tamale.
Okay.
And that's why we say that everybody needs to do it in what is culturally appropriate in the particular setting. If you don't mind, let me just give you an example of Nigeria, for example. Nigeria has 36 states. And they are culturally diverse and educationally diverse as Saudi Arabia and Sweden,
from
for example.
To Benue.
We have states in Nigeria that have adopted Sharia law.
I know that.
But then Nigeria adopted.
They have one CS.
They have, yes, and then
they call it CSE.
No, but the idea is this: is that every state domesticate it.
But
do you call it
CSE?
Yes, comprehensive sexuality. Domesticate it in your own state and do whatever you want in your own particular.
But that's a federal republic.
That's a federal republic.
The state governments have their own budgets.
Yes.
So there's a lot of autonomy there. But we are unitary states, so it doesn't really apply here.
So the idea is that wherever you are, that is what is being taught. That's what this guideline says, that wherever you are.
So Nigeria is actually a bad example.
Because
the educational authority in Sokoto is not the same as the educational authority in Benin State.
But
here, once the GES directs you to do something, whether you are in Kulungugu or you are in Kodiabe, you have to do the same policy. Let me take a break. I'll be right back. We're talking CSE. We have a lot of questions and comments as well. My guests are from UNFPA and National Population Council. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. We're trying to understand what CSE is. My guests are Niyi Ojuolape. He's from Nigeria. He's the UNFPA resident rep. Dr. Leticia Adelaide Appiah, Executive Director, National Population Council. And these two organizations have been part of the broad stakeholder consultations that have taken place. Let me take you back to Angel. He has more things to say since Niyi is so interested in what Angel is saying. And I think it's important because the teachers are the people who are going to implement the policy. And this is the president of the Graduate Teachers Association. Here are his views.
I don't see why anybody from Ghana Education Service or Minister or Ministry of Education will be interested in mounting a defense.
Well, indeed, they have a defense where they state that it is far from that the new curriculum does not seek to promote LGBT issues, masturbation, and explicit display or labeling or of intimate body parts to the children at that stage, as early as 6 years.
That is good, but then I'm saying that let us get the details of the syllabus. Something, I don't, there is miscommunication. And then maybe the name, the choice of name, that is what comprehensive sexual education.
Sexuality education.
Comprehensive sexuality education. We know how it is done in Europe. We know how it is done in America. So when you choose that same name to pursue yours, then you don't blame the people for standing against it.
For the fear of many who are trying to, or who are criticizing this document, they are saying that it has been funded by the UN. That's the United Nations Population Agency. So they are afraid that they are trying to push down on our culture what is not acceptable. But the GES is also saying that as a member state of the United Nations, in accordance with our culture, norms, and values, they are trying to implement sexuality, CSE, that is the Comprehensive Sexuality Education. It is being implemented in Europe and America, and then it is about time the same issues in the same content are being rolled out in the country. In fact, let me read. Member states of the United Nations are mandated to roll out comprehensive sexuality education in accordance with their cultural norms and values. It is therefore wrong to insist that CSE, as participated in Europe or North America, has the same structures and content as is being rolled out in Ghana. So what is trying to say that it should be relative to our culture in terms of its implementation. Yes. Yes. So the fear of the introduction of LGBT issues is neither here nor there when we argue on that line.
Can we call it a different name in line with our culture and our tradition, so as to put all this agitation and wranglings to rest? Maybe we can do that in accordance with our culture and our tradition. Then we put to rest the agitation in the minds of parents, in the minds of churches, in the minds of teachers.
Another leg of the argument is the fact that some of these contents are being studied as courses in religious and moral education, social studies, and pre-vocational and technical skills. So is there a need for a separate curriculum?
That is, again, another question. Because somebody even called me this morning and said, but then why did we take away the life skills? Because when you take the life skills subject, this adolescent reproductive health, adolescent reproductive rights, parts of human body, and all those things are already in the life skill book. We have put that away. They are even always in the social studies book. We've put that away. And then we are coming to talk about comprehensive sexual education. I get it. So, can we, in those areas of books, social studies, where these things are studied, why should this become a standalone to create the agitation that has been created? Right. So for me, I think that sometimes in the quest of doing new things, we should be cautious not to be ambiguous in our communication, not to open up the possibility of misunderstanding and misrepresentations, so that the people are clear in their minds. Look, the reaction that is associated this whole thing is an indication to me that a large section of our society do not want in the slightest form the introduction of LGBT, introduction of gay issues. And there are even people who believe that we should not even talk about it. The people may be wrong in the path they choose to follow, but the fact remains that Ghanaians react repulsively when there is the slightest attempt or when there is a slightest similarity of introducing some of these things into our society. And that is where the managers of education also have to be mindful and ensure that they don't become ambiguous or they don't sound conflicting in communicating with their people.
So that was Angel Kabonu. Makes an interesting point about why we even call it CSE. Because, I'll give you an example. In the US, there are many people who are against a form of CSE they implement. So I'll give you an example. Judith Reese, a PhD director of Liberty Children Protection Center in the US. She says, CSE is designed to change the sexual and gender norms of society, promote high-risk sexual behaviors, and encourage even the youngest of children to experiment sexually. Then another person in Oregon, president of the American College of Pediatricians, she says, I'm deeply concerned about CSE because it sexualizes children, it threatens the child's health, promotes a dangerous gender ideology, and undermines the parent-child relationship. She was referring to this under the so-called all-one curriculum in the US. So you see, I come back to the point. You're saying we've been doing this all along, yet you are calling by the same name it's called in Jamaica, Eswatini, California, and Ghana. So it's not culturally sensitive because it's universalized. That's the problem you've created for yourself, Mr.
Well, it means that the title.
First, it's not my document.
But your organization is a promoter of it.
Yeah.
UNFPA promotes it.
My organization is a supporter of what the government of Ghana does. And if the government of Ghana comes round to bring up these documents, we support the government of Ghana in making this happen. But let me also make the point. First, in 1989, there was the Child Rights Act that came into being. 1989, 30 years ago this November. Ghana was the first country in the entire world to sign on to it and ratify that treaty, the Child Rights Act. Other countries, over time, they came on board. Now, the Child Rights Act also has several things about the rights of a child. Over time, there are some countries that were reticent about signing it because they said, oh, it is something that was produced abroad and what have you, it is somebody else's agenda. Those countries could also have said it is Ghana's agenda. The fact that one country adopted it today and then it takes some time before another country adopts it does not mean that that document is the document of that particular country. So you can see if a country like Togo now comes around and says, oh, this is a Ghanaian government agenda, we're not going to take it. It deflects from the fact that the content of the document is what really matters.
Okay.
The name is a different issue.
Look, what problem is CSE solving that the previous iteration of it was not addressing?
Well, thank you so much. Well, CSE has looked at the whole developmental stage and made sure that the child is covered from primary to 18 years. You know, because after that, we assume that the child goes to university and we're trying to get sexuality education also in the universities. So that is it. Formerly, it was a bit scattered, far in between, and because it wasn't that structured, you could miss some stages and you wouldn't know. But I totally agree with Mr. Kabunu, what he said. You know, if the name is creating the problem, because the content is really good and is supposed to protect the child, as Niyi has said. Protecting the child is the primary goal of comprehensive sexuality education. It's protecting the child from sexual abuse and all that goes with it, so that the child can grow to be the person that God intended him or her to be and have a profession and benefit himself and the nation at large. And so, yes, probably we just need to look at it and look at the name, because if the name is keeping people away from even looking at the content, then probably we should re-look at it. Because for me, the most important thing is implementing the content and not so much as the name. From what you have read, it's gained.
Is the content not... there are concerns about some of the content. Okay, so I just read one to you where we are introducing gender concept, which is a very controversial concept at an early age. That's why I'm asking you, what problem? Is it that we've realized that, for example, teenagers are getting pregnant because they don't understand agency, they don't know they have control over their bodies? Or what is the problem? You get me? What data are we using to define this? To justify the CSE?
Well, children are getting abused, very, very young ages. Children are getting abused because probably the parents don't know that if you do this, it will affect the child psychologically, you know. And then children are also being taken advantage of. If you look at the data that we have, for instance, we have so many teenage pregnancies in the country. We have a lot of people having children as byproducts. They're not having, meanwhile, we want children by choice, not by chance. But then, because of the situation in which they find themselves, for instance, they probably want some money to buy food, and so they sleep with somebody, and as a byproduct of getting food, you get a child. You know?
But it's not a poverty problem. It's not a poverty problem. If somebody, don't forget our law has been changed to now say the age of consent is now 16. So our law is already very clear that anybody below 16 is a child.
Yeah.
So how is teenage or under 16 pregnancy a consequence of, is people being taken advantage of, is it not?
Yes, people being taken advantage of, and that is where comprehensive sexuality education also addresses. Because the first part of comprehensive sexuality education is assertiveness, is self-worth, and that is the foundation. Because if you are assertive and you value your life, and you have a goal and you have a future, it will be difficult for people to take advantage of you, So that is it. We need to take them through the whole stretch of it. And for me, the most important...
So you're saying that you are giving information to empower them.
Yes.
So that they will protect themselves or they will report. Because don't forget, we are talking 11, 12, 13, 14. You want to make a point?
Yes. Let's not forget the fact that the world is changing. The world 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, is very different from 2019. The influence of social media, for example, the internet and what have you, has changed the world in so many ways. Therefore, we must come up with something that is appropriate for today, that will address the issues that has arisen today. Some of the issues that people talk about was not there about 10 years ago. It is because these issues have arisen now that they are saying, okay, we should be looking at this at this point in time, that we should look at it again. So first, the world is changing. Number two, before now, we're talking about the difference between age 4 and age 6. Before, we were talking of age 6. All of this was going to start from age 6. But now people are taking their children to school that elementary. So we have people learning. So
are we saying that younger kids are exposed to more earlier than they were, say, 10 years ago? So it's better to preemptively teach them than to wait for them to discover from the wrong place. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in some way, yes. Largely, that is what I'm saying. But in addition, also, you should also take a look back to see when HIV started, everybody was saying, no, it is not possible. Instead of us to give contraception or condoms and make it widely available, and say, no, it's not going to happen. But over time, HIV actually went deep into the rubrics of the society before we started playing catch-up. All of this is to get that young girl. Let's look at a 10-year-old girl, a typical 10-year-old girl, one that has information and the one that does not have this information. That 10-year-old girl, in 2 years or 3 years' time, can easily get pregnant, and the course of life will be changed.
Okay.
But before now, there are certain things in our society that are not culturally really, really frowned at. Really, over time. There are certain things that have been in our society that people don't think are so much offense. For example, spousal violence. For example, female genital mutilation. But our government has come to even outlaw it over time. Those are changes that are expected in the society. And in responding to these changes, government has to step up.
There was a document circulating on social media showing reproductive parts of people. And the document was a PPAG document. And I think to the extent that PPAG is seen as one of the promoters of course, the IPPF, which local chapter is PPAG, is seen as one of the promoters of the CSE. There's a lot of people circulating, and if I have the cover, I'll show it. This sexual reproductive health manual and contents of that page as what will be taught to our kids. Can you clarify? Because that's been sent to me quite a lot of time. I can't show them on television. But there's extracts from the PPAG handbook, which is, I think, this book, Know It, Own It, Live It. And there are pages of this being circulated as part of what will be taught to kids. And they show human reproductive parts and all that. So do you know this document? And the other point they make is that the colors in the document are quite similar to the LGBT colors. So then the inference is made that, well, if you're teaching comprehensive sexuality education manual, why are you using the LGBT colors? And then if PPAG are part of the promoters of this, the content in their document may well find its way into the curriculum. So can you comment, either of you, on this?
I can easily comment on that. First, let's look at the issue of the colors of the rainbow, so to say.
Is it?
The rainbow was created by God. Let's first understand that.
But it's very clear to everybody that this is the colors of the LGBTQ movement.
But you need to ask the authors if that was the reason why that
we have a brain we can make a difference.
Number two.
We don't need to ask the authors
number two issue there is look at the logo that you have there. You have PPAG and ECOWAS,
which makes people even more afraid.
Now, I want to make a point that ECOWAS is an organization of 16 states, 16 countries, and so if you have something that is inter-country in nature, that is to tell you that it has gone even beyond just Ghana.
Which makes it worse, according to some people.
No, it depends on what you mean by what.
In fact, ECOWAS meetings are even paid for by the EU when they do their trade programs. And I'll tell you this. Please. When they do their conversations on even, the EPAs, a lot of times the EU sponsors it. I cover it as a journalist, I know.
Oh, okay.
So please.
So when you say they,
so the point is that
all of us.
Yes. So the point I'm making is that the fact that it has ECOWAS on it does not legitimize it in any way or make it less problematic.
That's not what I'm
saying. So my question
saying.
is that content that they are sharing, you've worked on this.
Yeah.
Can you confirm that that's not part of the material in the manual, or is it just mischief they are doing?
Well, the education division, the curriculum division of the Ghana Health Service, I think even issued a statement today. They're looking at different contents, not just this manual. They're looking at different contents, and so that they can come out with a comprehensive one for us. Mm-hmm. So it is not just this manual that will be used to populate our guidelines. Mm-hmm. It's, as we said, what defines everything that will go into this is the appropriateness and the culturally acceptable. And so we will have this document and then some other documents. There are some documents from Kenya and other places that we put in together to make sure that we come out with a document that is appropriate for us. So the PPAG manual, yes, maybe we'll pick one or two from there by the curriculum division of the Ghana Education Service, but that is not...
Can you put up the GES statement, because I think it's important for the discussion to put it up to clarify. For immediate release, GES response on comprehensive sexuality education. The attention of the management of Ghana Education Service has been drawn to discussions on various media platforms of allegations that the GES, there it is introducing explicit sexual information to children as young as age 4 under the guise of CSE. The GES is surprised at the wild speculations and claims, and wishes to clarify as follows. 1. The new standard-based curriculum being implemented has nothing to do with LGBT issues, masturbation, or explicit display label of intimate body parts. 2. In all the training programs on the curriculum from simulation, through master training to the training of the 152,000 kg to P6 teachers, there was no mention of any of the issues referred to above. 3. The CSE does not seek to throw out the advocacy for sexual abstinence, but rather seeks to reinforce it. The goal of CSE is to equip school children with age and cultural appropriate information to explore and nurture positive values and attitudes towards their sexual and reproductive health, and to develop self-esteem, respect for human rights and gender equality. It further seeks to help students to make informed decisions about their health with emphasis on Ghanaian culture and values and norms. Member states of the UN are mandated to roll out CSE, you see, so it's a mandate in accordance with their cultural norms and values. It's therefore wrong to insist that CSE as practiced in Europe and North America has the same structure and content as being rolled out in Ghana. 5. Indeed, on the 29th of April 2019, the GES wrote to the acting executive secretary of the National Council on Curriculum and Assessment to request the insertion of the phrase within the acceptable cultural values and norms of Ghanaian society in the third objective of page 3 of the guidelines. The insertion has not been made yet, and therefore GES has not finally approved the guidelines being discussed on various media platforms. The GES, and I think you pointed this out in the morning, the GES wishes to assure the general public that no special sessions have been organized or will be organized by the GES to train students and advocates for sexual rights, let alone LGBT rights, which are culturally, socially, legally, morally, and religiously alien to Ghana. And then they conclude. Doc, do you think, based on the speculation and the hysteria on social media, we missed the trick in the consultation process? Because this got to a lot of people in a manner that was already packaged as going to destroy you. If you think back at the work you've done since February, when this was officially launched, is there something you ought to have done or could have done to prevent this?
Yes, I think we should have been a bit more proactive. We should have probably had a dissemination strategy. You know, after the launch by GES, we should have had a dissemination strategy with all our stakeholders and tighten out the knotty issues, and wouldn't have gotten here. Because the discussions are we're all talking about the same thing. We all want the best for the children. For me, that is the most important, and that is the underlying thing that goes through all these discussions. And so anything to make the children's life better, because we shouldn't forget that everybody was once a child. And so if the children are okay now, it means they grow up to be responsible, productive adults. So yes, I think we should have done a bit more consultation, or we should have done a bit more dissemination. We should have used all the media that we have, the media, electronic, and all the media to make sure that everybody was on board.
I'll take a short break and come back to Niyi, and I have a lot of comments as well. Some people are not happy with you. I'm going to read their comments. Stay with us. This is the point of view. Welcome back to The Point of View. My guests are Dr. Leticia Adelaide Appiah, National Population Council Executive Secretary. They've been consulting part of this, or they've been stakeholders in the process leading up to this. As have UNFPA, the resident rep is Niyi Ojuolape. You wanted to make a comment. Let me read a few comments, then you can box your response to them. Good evening, Bernard. CSE is irrelevant in our curriculum now. We took our religious and moral education, and we are bringing this. GS needs a broader consultation with stakeholders like the PTAs before this thing should be rolled out. Were the PTAs consulted? Not sure. We don't know. Well, I'm a PTA chairman in my school. I don't know anything about this. Hello, Bernard. I'm Marvelous from Alajo. The CSE thing isn't this CSE thing isn't our thing. And the government shouldn't impose it on us because the kids are too young. Olayan Akwetia says, with all due respect, Bernard, can we get one of the teachers here who went for the training on CSE and was told to go and teach our kids on LGBT? Well, no teacher. We spoke to Angel. I don't think he confirmed that any teacher had been asked to teach kids on LGBT. Bernard, this country is full of filth. Why can't we develop a curriculum for that from Wisdom in PPAG? Well, I think there's a curriculum on filth. Is there not? I don't know. Sanitation. The CSE is not communicated well with parents and guardians, so GES should come clearer with its aims and objectives. Stephen from Kintampo, I think you agree with that. But I think this education will go a long way in helping these students make good decisions relating to their sexuality, rather than they learning it inappropriately elsewhere. I believe parents may be confused about the word sexuality, which they need more education on. Charles Dakor and Tamale. Niyi, let me take some quick comments from you on this before I continue with the messages. Any points on?
Yes, I just wanted to make allusions to what Dr. Appiah mentioned about the issue of the communication and the matter of consultation across the board. I think we shouldn't get government beat up too much about this issue, because I know that there is only that much government can do at any particular time in terms of consulting. For us in UNFPA, for example, we had a consultation with faith-based leaders, Christian and Muslim faith-based leaders, and we talked about comprehensive sexuality education.
In Ghana?
In Ghana.
When was this?
Here in November last year. And I can tell you...
What did they say?
And we had a discussion. They mentioned what the issues that they have with it, and then we also spoke to them about what the issues are, and we agreed.
But did they look at did they look at this? Did they look at? Was there any document presented to them?
Then.
Because I'm asking because I remember we interviewed one on the evening today, and they said they had no idea the content.
The issue.
So you can have a discussion with somebody, but he doesn't know what you are going to present.
Let me finish. We had a discussion, and we eventually agreed that comprehensive sexuality education is essential for everybody. It's not even the issue of...
But did we agree on what it meant?
But as at that time, I can tell you that this document was not yet ready. But these documents has been in this country for 2-3 years now.
So which one is that?
Yes, this is Adolescent Sexual Reproductive Health and Development Source Book for Teachers. And
which one is this
one? For teachers. This is the guidelines that says don't teach everything in this place for a child that is 4 years old. Make sure that what you do in terms of teaching, when you want to teach the 4-year-old, restrict yourself to this.
Okay.
When it is a 6-year-old, restrict yourself to this. So this
one has more meat.
This is the real thing.
This is the real thing.
This is the real thing. It's been available forever.
Did you have discussions? So who agreed on what to teach in the green? Did the faith-based organizations also make an input into what to be taught here?
Yes. But
do you have documents of what they said?
Yes, but I don't have it here.
No,
let me tell you.
I'm asking because we've interviewed a lot of faith-based people,
Yeah.
and they are expressing different views. So if you say you were in meetings with them, what did they say?
They were all represented.
Which is actually the point that I want to make.
Maybe they don't
For
go
example,
back in.
you are a faith-based leader.
Me?
Yes. I am a faith-based leader.
Now you are changing my profession too.
Wait. I'm a faith-based
All the
leader.
problems you've caused.
And I can tell you that the entire spectrum of faith-based leaders that we have in this country will be in their tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands.
Yes.
The government of Ghana cannot reach every one of them and talk to them. There are only that many that the government can reach.
What did they say?
And
the ones you met.
What did they say about?
Did they know what you would teach at the various levels?
It's not me that is teaching. First, the Ghana Education Service said that they're having simulation through master training to the training of the 152,000 teachers. 152,000 teachers. That is, the training is a discussion between them. The teachers will also say, I'm not sure I can teach this. I'm not sure I can. So they'll have a discussion.
Let me read a few more comments before we go.
Yeah.
Adwoajima, UNFPA is promoting their own agenda, which is not in line with our cultural norms. Kweku Abeku Kanate, if you claim it's being taught already, then what else do you want to mainstream? Emil Omega, please say, tell your guests that we don't want that in our educational system. We want something that can put food on our table. Bernard, their body language is giving them away. Madam is speaking at some of your questions, Bernard. They need to convince us beyond reasonable doubt. At the moment, I cringe at some of the responses I'm getting from Doc and the country rep. This is filling your blog. Bernard, why not review educational policies that will improve the skill set of students to promote technical breakthrough? This policy shouldn't be forced down our throats. We deserve to pursue the content. There's a lot more comments. Do you feel, based on all that has come up, there needs to be some level of more engagement before it's rolled out? Is it something you would advise?
Well, yes. I mean, for letting people know the content, I think it's important because everybody should be on board. Everybody really needs to be on board. You know, she's talking about a curriculum that will give skills, but we never talk about the enabling environment for that skills.
Okay.
Enabling environment is as good as the skills. You know, it is important that we make the children comfortable. You know, we are discussing comprehensive sexuality education and talking about what to teach them. We're talking about personal hygiene, body hygiene, and all that. But we're not even talking about the schools that we have. 30% of our schools don't have water or toilet facilities. More don't have water. 30% don't have toilet facilities. About 50% don't have water. So even going through this model and talking about menstrual hygiene is going to be a challenge over there. So it has to be comprehensive.
Brilliant.
So comprehensive, making sure that the logistics are there, the water is there, the toilet is there, the enabling environment. Because talking about skills training, you cannot train an engineer in an environment that is not conducive.
Right.
So
Let me end by saying that the man in charge of curriculum says even the textbooks are not ready. So we will wait for the textbooks and hopefully we can review them in greater detail. I've been talking to Dr. Leticia Adelaide Appiah. She's the Executive Director, National Population Council, and Niyi Ojuolape. He is the UNFPA resident rep in Ghana. Earlier on, you heard from Angel Carbon, President of NAGRAT. My name is Ben Avle. Thank you for watching Point of View on CCTV. Stay with us. Bye-bye.